There's this horrible building here in New York City. It's called the AT&T Long Lines building, and let's be real, it's creepy. It's got no windows. It was designed to survive a nuclear blast and fallout, and it might be an NSA spy hub called TITANPOINTE, all caps. It's also the inspiration for the oldest house, where control takes place. The oldest house is home to the Bureau of Control, a government agency specializing in unexplained phenomena, like aliens, or when your refrigerator devours your child. Things like that. The Bureau didn't build the oldest house. No one built it, or maybe it built itself. But the Bureau found it in the middle of Manhattan and moved in. Seems illegal. It's a place of power, a living structure beyond human understanding. And to capture that cold alien feeling, the team at Remedy turned to a particular architectural style: brutalism.
Now, a lot of people think that the word brutalism comes from the fact that it looks brutal. It actually comes from the term for raw concrete, the French term, which is BETON brut.
This is Allison Arieff. She's the editorial director of SPUR, an urban planning and policy think tank, and she's also one of the founding editors of Dwell magazine. And when it comes to brutalism,
I'm a fan. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to live in a brutalist building.
Brutalist buildings don't look like they want you living in them either. They're predominantly concrete and geometric, and huge, because the style was often used for schools, government buildings, churches, and apartment blocks. Brutalist buildings have a tendency to loom. They've got too many windows, or none windows, and they're ugly and miserable and cold, and why do they exist?
Most trace it back to the Swiss French architect Le Corbusier, who loved concrete.
Concrete was considered this very humble medium of the people, as opposed to something that's ornate and rococo and made in this very elaborate way. So
that's Avery Trufelman. You can hear more from her in 99% Invisible's episode on brutalism and the Nice Try podcast, which is really good. She's got a great voice. Europe was recovering from World War II when brutalism was at its peak. A lot of cities were, notably, fucked up. People needed to build, and to build quickly. They didn't need anything fancy.
So it was made from this very charitable, intense urge to create spaces for people, to house a lot of people, making sure that the municipal buildings and the public buildings are accessible to as many people as possible. So I think there was a deep appreciation in that.
But despite brutalism's humanitarian roots, it can still give off the vibe that it wasn't actually made with human comfort in mind. A style that was born from a socialist need to provide housing for people can now look dehumanizing. And a government building that to one generation looked humble and unadorned can now look totalitarian and oppressive. Which, for the design team at Remedy, was the perfect combination of form, function, and theme.
But I do think that it's a good metaphor for the Bureau and for the game in a sense that what started as a very utopian and idealistic architecture has become to represent oppression and bureaucracy and maybe a lot of negative things these days.
Jana and Stuart were instrumental in creating the world of control. And for Stuart, a former architect, brutalism perfectly represents the oldest house.
One of the terms I always liked was the sort of prison for the weird. So it's not a comfortable space, really.
The way we've approached it is that maybe the building doesn't really care too much about the people inside.
Seemingly adhering to its physical outer constraints and yet constantly breaking the known boundaries of reality.
It's not just a visual idea that we had in the beginning. It ticked a lot of these boxes from the gameplay and performance and destruction sense.
All of this stark concrete doesn't just look ominous and foreboding. It's also part of what makes Control so satisfying. Because for all the time I spend admiring these rooms, I spend even more time destroying the shit out of them. A core part of Remedy's design philosophy is that it should feel like the player is having an effect on the world. The oldest house is perfectly designed to make you feel that way. The concrete walls are blank like a canvas, so every reaction is apparent, and even better, specific to your actions. So when you hover and then slam into the ground, you get an impact crater. Bullets leave scars and fill the air with dust. You can rip out a gnarly chunk of wall and throw it, or use it to shield yourself. If you throw furniture, it bows on impact because concrete is freaking hard. You start with smooth, bare walls and end with a catastrophe of rubble that tells the story of your fight.
And then also, because we looked at creating the comprehensive destruction, it gave us a good balance, that cleanliness, because 2 minutes later it's going to be complete chaos. So to get the contrast, you have to start with quite a clean environment.
In the center of this Venn diagram of world building, gameplay, and visual design, we find Control's relationship with ritual. The Bureau knows the importance of ritual in keeping objects of power under control. And as Jessie moves through the oldest house, she's restoring order by ritualistically cleansing the hiss powers from the house's control points. It's a video game. Ritual is also reinforced through the architecture.
When we were talking a lot about ritual being repetition and recursion in the game world, and we're looking at brutalist architecture, I suddenly recalled Carlos SCARPA.
At a certain point in the game, there is the television that has this sort of a feedback loop, like when you point a video camera to the television. I saw a similar thing, what SCARPA does with that there might be a simple shape, but repeating in the concrete like a rectangular shape, and then there's another smaller rectangular inside and smaller one, and that's how the steps appear.
It was like choral as well, it kind of steps and grows, it repeats its rule several times, so it does this kind of strange kind of obsessional feedback.
This inspired the visual design for the house's shifting halls. The building is engaging in its own unconscious ritual, repeating its shapes and growing inwards, which is disturbing because it's concrete. It's not supposed to do that. So, the structure and the people inside it are all engaged in ritual. That's a lot for a humble New York office building to take. But luckily, the oldest house is really bad at being an office. It's much better at being a church.
We were often treating the spaces as churches and thinking that like, what if this was church, how would this be lit, or how can we kind of build a space around a kind of an altarpiece?
It's not quite practical. I mean, there's really impractical spaces. There's these huge vast halls and then there's like tiny corners that are offices and then things shift as well.
Like a cathedral, many of the spaces in Control are built around a symmetrical one-point perspective. It subtly reinforces the message that this was never supposed to be an office. It feels weird and disorienting to navigate.
It does give you the feeling of being lost in someone else's new development, someone else's dystopia. It was beautiful. I mean, in a horrifying way.
And that's exactly how I feel about brutalist architecture now. In Control, I learned to appreciate the sparseness of concrete, its textures and how light falls on it, and the way that it contrasts with wood or with greenery. I think it can be beautiful. In a horrifying way. Hey, what if I delivered it like I had a purse of fucking-ality? People needed to build and build very quickly. They didn't need anything fancy. Don't laugh at me. As Logan Roy would say, fuck off. Europe was recovering from World War II.